The JonBenét Ramsey case sits at the intersection of tragedy and mystery. On the morning after Christmas in 1996, 6-year-old JonBenét was reported missing from her family's home in Boulder, Colorado. Hours later, her father, John Ramsey, opened a storage room in the basement and found his daughter's body. The autopsy would reveal she died from strangulation and a blow to the head, with evidence suggesting she had been sexually assaulted. Unknown DNA was recovered from her fingernails and underwear. Nearly 3 decades on, her killer has never been identified, but advances in forensic science and a shift in investigative leadership have rekindled hope. In the days leading up to the murder, the Ramsey family celebrated the holidays like many families. On December 25th, they attended a friend's Christmas party, and JonBenét received a new bicycle. According to the Denver Post, a handwritten 2.5-page ransom note appeared on a back staircase around 5:30 a.m. on December 26th. The note demanded $118,000, the exact amount of John Ramsey's Christmas bonus, and instructed the family not to contact police. Patsy Ramsey immediately dialed 911 at 5:52 a.m. Officer Rick French arrived minutes later and performed a cursory search but failed to open the small room where JonBenét would later be found. Detective Linda Arndt, the first investigator on the scene, eventually instructed John Ramsey and family friend Fleet White to search the house. Just after 1 p.m., John discovered his daughter's body in the basement's spare room. By moving her and bringing her upstairs, key physical evidence was likely disturbed. Early investigative decisions hampered the case. The crime scene was never fully secured. Friends and a minister were allowed to roam the house, and critical areas were not cordoned off. Investigators also initially focused on the Ramsey family. Within days, the Ramseys volunteered hair, blood and handwriting samples and then returned to Atlanta for the funeral. Media scrutiny intensified when John and Patsy gave a 45-minute interview to CNN on January 1, 1997, urging parents to watch their children because a killer was on the loose. Investigators followed the family to Georgia to conduct searches, and later determined the ransom note had been written on paper from inside the Ramsey home. A second sheet indicated the writer practiced before producing the final note. Police questioned JonBenét's half-siblings John Andrew and Melinda Ramsey, and eventually cleared them. Handwriting analysis eliminated John Ramsey as the author of the note but could not definitively exclude Patsy. Despite these efforts, the investigation soon lost momentum and internal disagreements surfaced. By 1998, frustration over the stalled case led District Attorney Alex Hunter to consider convening a grand jury. The panel, empaneled in September, allowed prosecutors to subpoena witnesses and review evidence. Over the ensuing months, a series of law enforcement resignations underscored tension between detectives and the district attorney's office. Detective Steve Thomas resigned in August 1998, accusing prosecutors of crippling the case. Veteran detective Lou Smith, who believed an intruder killed JonBenét, also quit after concluding the focus on the Ramseys was misguided. The grand jury heard forensic evidence, toured the Ramsey home, and requested additional DNA samples. In October 1999, however, Hunter announced there was not sufficient evidence to file charges. The public did not learn until 2013 that jurors had actually voted to indict John and Patsy Ramsey for child abuse resulting in death and accessory to a crime. The indictments were sealed because prosecutors believed they lacked proof beyond a reasonable doubt. The early 2000s saw the case drift further into the realm of speculation. John and Patsy Ramsey published a book, The Death of Innocence, and held a press conference announcing that lie detector tests showed they were innocent. In June 2006, Patsy Ramsey died of ovarian cancer. 2 months later, an American schoolteacher named John Mark Carr falsely confessed to the murder. He was extradited from Thailand, but DNA tests quickly ruled him out, and prosecutors dismissed the case. In July 2008, Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey formally cleared the Ramsey family after new DNA tests matched an unknown male profile on JonBenét's underwear and long johns. Years later, in 2013, a judge unsealed the 1999 indictments, revealing that jurors had initially wanted to charge the parents. This disclosure renewed debate about whether investigators had been too quick to exonerate the family or whether the grand jury process had been mishandled. The intervening decades produced moments of media frenzy but little concrete progress. In 2016, JonBenét's brother Burke gave his first television interview, telling Dr. Phil that he believed an intruder was responsible. That same year, CBS aired a documentary suggesting 9-year-old Burke might have killed his sister, prompting a $750 million defamation lawsuit. The parties settled in 2019. Meanwhile, forensic techniques advanced. In November 2022, the Boulder Police Department announced it would collaborate with the Colorado Cold Case Review Team, a multi-agency panel of forensic experts, to re-examine evidence. The team spent 2023 digitizing more than 1 million pages of reports and thousands of evidence items. Investigators built a searchable database containing over 21,000 tips, 1,000 interviews across 17 states and 2 foreign countries, and more than 200 samples of handwriting, DNA, fingerprints, and shoe prints. Boulder Police Chief Maris Harold said the effort would allow detectives to prioritize recommendations from the review and prepare evidence for future DNA testing. By December 2023, the Cold Case Review Team had delivered its recommendations, though the department declined to disclose specifics. A year later, in December 2024, ABC News reported that a multidisciplinary team of experts continued to review the remaining evidence using modern forensic techniques. Sources told the network that tips were still coming in and that investigators were applying the latest cold case methodologies. They noted that the FBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and outside forensic laboratories were all involved. The article also reiterated that the autopsy found JonBenét had been sexually assaulted and strangled, with a fractured skull and foreign DNA. Although the piece hinted at progress, it warned that evidence may never reach the threshold for prosecution. Interest surged again in 2025. In January, John Ramsey met with Interim Police Chief Stephen Redfern, whom he later praised as honest and committed. He publicly advocated for investigative genetic genealogy, arguing that private DNA labs could solve the case with minuscule samples. During CrimeCon 2025 in Denver, the Ramsey family's former attorney Hal Haddon told attendees that dozens of evidence items were being retested by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. Haddon highlighted the garrote used to strangle JonBenét, noting that DNA might be recovered from the knots. At the same convention, John Ramsey continued to press for state legislation that would give victims' families the right to request reviews of cold cases. The crucial official update came in mid-December 2025. Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern released a video statement as part of the department's annual case update, emphasizing that the investigation remained a top priority. He announced that detectives had conducted several new interviews and re-interviewed individuals based on tips. Redfern also confirmed that investigators had collected new evidence and tested and retested other pieces of evidence to generate new leads, noting that techniques and technology, especially those related to DNA, constantly evolve. Importantly, he declined to reveal what was tested or who was interviewed, citing the need to protect the integrity of the investigation. ABC News and other outlets reported that law enforcement had gathered new evidence and were retesting existing samples. They reiterated that the murder remains a top priority for Boulder police and that anyone with information should contact detectives. John Ramsey told People that he was encouraged by the update and by Redfern's leadership, saying the chief was sincere and honest and committed to using the latest DNA technology. He noted that he had met with Redfern multiple times and believed the department was very interested in using genealogy research to solve the case. Today, nearly 30 years after JonBenét Ramsey's murder, the case stands at an unusual juncture. No suspect has been charged, yet evidence continues to be reviewed, and new forensic techniques offer possibilities that did not exist in the late 1990s. Advances in DNA sequencing and genetic genealogy have reopened other cold cases, and the Ramseys hope that the same approach will identify the person who wrote the ransom note, bound the child with a garrote, and left her in the basement of her own home. At the same time, the case has spawned conspiracy theories and sensational claims. For example, A 2026 viral rumor falsely alleged that a political commentator's widow was secretly JonBenét, an idea John Ramsey dismissed as nonsense. Such speculation underscores the need to rely on documented facts and official statements when discussing unsolved crimes. What can be said with certainty is that JonBenét's case has been re-examined by successive teams of investigators, that more than 21,000 tips have been logged, and that unknown male DNA was preserved and retested as methods improved. The December 2025 update, along with John Ramsey's persistent advocacy, signals that officials are willing to employ cutting-edge forensic science. Whether these efforts will finally resolve who murdered a 6-year-old girl remains unknown. For now, the JonBenét Ramsey story is a reminder of both the fallibility of early investigations and the promise of modern forensic technology. It challenges viewers not to accept sensational rumors, but to follow credible updates, respect the pain of those involved and support advances that might one day bring closure.